not be the same without the sights and sounds of the CNE.
There will be no deep-fried Oreos, no Super Dogs show, no thrilling rides this year. For the first time since the Second World War, Toronto's iconic fair has been officially canceled, and it's because of COVID-19. Ontario's reopening plan will not include the Canadian National Exhibition. The CNE that was scheduled to run from August 21st to September 7th has now been canceled. Talia Ricci joins us live now from the X grounds. And Talia, the annual summer event has not been canceled for 7 decades now.
That's right, Dwight. Just as you mentioned, it hasn't been canceled since the Second World War, back when the fairgrounds were converted into a military training and recruitment center in the 1940s. Now, seeing an exhibition place full of carnival rides and live performances and outrageous food, that's kind of always symbolized the end of summer for Torontonians. And so this announcement has a lot of people on social media wondering what summer in the city is going to look like this year. Earlier, the president of the CNE addressed the decision, saying that it was made primarily to protect the health of Canadians, and he also hinted towards potential virtual projects that the organization is working on.
While fans of the CNE won't be able to enjoy the live experience of the X in its full capacity this summer, organizers are planning to bring the fun of the fair through creative and innovative ways. So stay tuned.
Now, this is an event that generates close to $130 million into the Ontario economy each year. It brings in 1.4 million visitors and helps employ more than 5,000 seasonal workers. The CNE said this decision was made last week in collaboration with the provincial and municipal governments. Both of those leaders addressed it in today's updates.
It does represent an opportunity for thousands of young people to have some employment over the summer for a few weeks, and that often has meant a great deal to a lot of those kids in terms of the jobs. Obviously, all the different operators and people who display their wares and sell things at the CNE are going to be affected by this. But you know, it is just one more tragic loss on the economic side that is as a result of this pandemic. But it is a result of the fact that we've placed, the CNE board and we all have placed health first.
I remember going to the CNE with $5, $10 in my hand, and you'd be there all day. That's going to be the first time I understand it's ever going to be closed. But these are some of the sacrifices that we're facing as a society, and I'm going to miss it.
Now, Mayor Tory also said that the CNE could look a little different once it does return, saying that this is a good time to potentially reimagine the event. Now, the 2020 Canadian International Air Show has also been canceled. That typically runs the last 3 days of the CNE over Labor Day long weekend. Dwight?
Talia Ricci on the CNE grounds for us tonight. Thank you, Talia. Ontario's state of emergency due to the coronavirus pandemic has now been extended into early June. It has been 8 weeks since Premier Doug Ford announced a shutdown of almost all businesses. Today, he teased some good news to come later this week.
On Thursday, we will share more details about the next stage of reopening our province. We'll be reopening more low-risk workplaces, seasonal businesses, and essential services. And it will be stage 1 of 3 stages.
Stage 1 of reopening, according to the province, also means opening some outdoor spaces and allowing essential gatherings of a limited number of people. Ford mentioned today he is talking to health officials about the possibility of allowing gatherings of up to 10 people. Ontario's top doctor, however, says he's not confident we've met the threshold to move into stage 1.
No, I would have recommended we're already there, but we haven't yet. We're in about day 7, 8 of a sort of a downward trend, unfortunately not a very rapid downward trend, but it's tending that way. Our other metrics are looking good, but we haven't had all those things come together yet where we say, now we're ready to enter stage 1. I think we're getting closer in that, but if it was already there, I would have already recommended it.
We are expecting, as we said earlier, more details on this reopening plan on Thursday.
We're making sure the resources are at the long-term care homes.
We're here to ask questions today in this House that no one ever wanted to ever have to ask.
Hand sanitizers and a handful of politicians. Question period is back at Ontario's legislature, but the pandemic means it is not business as usual. Politicians sat for a special session today at Queen's Park, one that included the first question period in 2 months, and it was dominated by the NDP's calls for a full public inquiry into the government's response to COVID-19. Queen's Park reporter Mike Crawley now with the details.
Springtime at Queen's Park, but a springtime session like no other. Inside the legislature, some traditions remain as normal, but as MPPs enter the chamber, you see how things have changed. For the victims of COVID-19, a moment of silence.
It is now time for oral questions.
During Ontario's first question period in 2 months, MPPs spread out in a show of physical distancing. There is zero heckling, and naturally, every question is about the pandemic.
Speaker, families with loved ones in long-term care are demanding answers, and they deserve those answers. And they deserve a full public inquiry that is nonpartisan to give them those answers.
Premier Doug Ford doesn't commit.
We're going to review the system, a system that's been broken for decades. And I can promise you one thing, we are going to fix it.
So I put this question to the Premier.
SARS killed 44 people in Ontario, and there was a public inquiry. Elizabeth Wetlaufer killed 8 people in long-term care homes. There was a public inquiry. At Walkerton, 6 people died. There was a public inquiry. At Ipperwash, the OPP killed 1 First Nations demonstrator. There was a public inquiry. So far, COVID-19 has killed nearly 1,800 people in Ontario. Why won't you commit to a public inquiry?
Well, what we want to do is make sure we get through this and support people in long-term care and right across this province. We're going to have reviews right across the board, no matter if it's a procurement system or if it's long-term care. We'll make sure we review it from top to bottom.
Reviews are not enough for Andrea Horvath. She says an inquiry would go further.
It won't be constrained by the interests of the governing party. It will be not only public and transparent and independent, but it will also pull in, as all public inquiries in the past in Ontario have, the voices of people who have actually been impacted and affected.
MPPs are next due to return here to Queen's Park a week from today. They're to hold question period twice weekly until early June. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
Residents and workers in long-term care homes would have been a priority during the COVID-19 pandemic if they were under the purview of Ontario Health Teams, a system overseen by the province. That is according to the organization representing the province's nurses. Lisa Shing has more.
Each day I wake up, I have no clue what the next morning is going to be. If it's her last day, I have no idea how much time she has left.
Sherry Zielinski's mother, Margaret, lives at Orchard Villa, one of the long-term care homes in the province hit hardest by COVID-19. 74 residents have died. 52 are currently infected. Zielinski's mom tested positive about a month ago.
She's by herself. She thinks we've abandoned her. She doesn't know where we are. So it's a lot harder for her.
Orchard Villa is just one of 180 nursing homes dealing with an outbreak. The military has been called in to help there and at 4 others. The Registered Nurses Association of Ontario says the outcome could have been a lot different. If the province had more oversight in the care of residents, it says they would have been tested faster and staff would have had masks a lot sooner.
It would not have been an afterthought.
The RNAO released a report looking at how to improve healthcare post-pandemic. The 13 recommendations encourage a move from hospital-focused to community-based care. That includes mandating Ontario Health Teams to include long-term care homes, so they work with other health providers in the community.
No doubt that we would have lost precious lives, even if long-term care would have been fantastic, but much less. Much less.
Most of the teams that have come forward already as local Ontario Health Teams do have long-term care included as part of their group.
According to the Ministry of Health, about half of the 24 health teams include 1 or more long-term care homes. The province says it'll continue to encourage those partnerships. Sherry Zielinski says that won't help her situation, but hopefully others.
We're not sleeping. We're calling every day. Our life is consumed of my mom.
Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
It is National Nursing Week, which always coincides with the birthday of Florence Nightingale. She's known as the pioneer of modern-day nursing as a profession. Well, today would have been her 200th birthday. To highlight some of the ways nurses are working through this pandemic together, we are joined by Rebecca Nagam from Toronto General Hospital. She's a nurse in the emergency department, and that's where we find her now. Thank you for joining us, Rebecca. Let's start with what it's been like for you working with COVID-19 patients there at Toronto Western.
Hi, thank you for having me. I think our day-to-day practice has been quite drastically different compared to 2 months ago now. We're a lot more cautious. We're washing our hands a lot more. We're always wearing our face masks. Well, I'm in a room alone, but we're interacting with our patients with our full gear, face masks, just being very mindful of ourselves, our team, and also with the patients as well. So it's been very different.
Now, you've spent years working in Sierra Leone treating Ebola patients with Doctors Without Borders. How did that experience equip you now to battle COVID here at home?
I think in an Ebola epidemic in 2015, we already knew a lot about the virus. So there was a lot of things are unknown. We know how to set our practices. The things that's different with COVID-19 now is that there's a lot of unknown. There's still a lot of information, a lot of research being done to discover what this virus is all about, how we should be treating it, how we should be preventing it, how it's being spread. So it's very different. We know that both of them are infectious disease, but there's just a lot of information that we still don't know, and that's why a lot of things are still being done. A lot of policies are in the process of being modified in order to accommodate how we're going to prevent this infection to continue being spread in the community and just among patients here.
We are talking about the importance of people in your profession as we kind of celebrate you this week with National Nursing Week. Let's talk about why you decided to become a nurse.
Well, I always enjoy working with people, and I like being hands-on. I'm curious about medicine and science, and my mother works in the healthcare. So I've always been exposed to the hospital environment, and part of me wanted to be involved with global health at a very young age. So I just thought that nursing was a very natural way to lead me onto the goals that I want to achieve professionally later on in life.
You guys are being considered heroes as we battle through this pandemic. Let's talk about what the morale has been like in your emergency department. How's COVID changed the way you guys are feeling and working together right now?
I feel like COVID-19 has actually drawn our teams together more compared to before. I think it's just something that you're going through such a significant piece of history together, and you know that you're contributing in some way, shape, or form, and I feel like it's making us closer. We want to have each other's back. We want to make sure that everyone is putting on their PPEs properly. We want to make sure that we're looking after the critically ill patients while having the appropriate equipment. So I think in many ways, shape, or form, we definitely have a closer bond together as a team.
Well, you guys are on the front lines battling this really infectious disease, and we thank you, Rebecca, for everything you're doing. Rebecca Nagam is a nurse at Toronto General Hospital. Rebecca, thank you for everything and your co-workers are doing out there on the front lines. We really appreciate your time this afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, Colette, we're celebrating the nurses. So what's the weather for Florence Nightingale's 200th birthday today?
Well, I wish she could wait a couple days because then I think it might be more appreciated for today. You know, not only is it cold, but I mean, we're talking record cold again. So the record for this date was minus 2.2, if you can read under my X there. That was back in 1939. And this morning, we were at minus 3. So 2020, there you go, May 12th, the new record low that we have there. Average highs 18, average lows should be closer to about 6 degrees. Not these records. Yet again, tonight, are we going to set another record? Well, hang on a moment and I'll give you my forecast and you'll see. So our current temperatures are 7 degrees for so many areas. Hamilton, Kitchener coming in a few degrees warmer than that. Those winds, they've been quite gusty today. Cool breeze from the north to northwest. Had even a few flurries north of the GTA earlier in the day. That's been pressing away, moving off towards the east. That's a good thing. Clearing our skies out tonight. It does allow for this cool air, but it sets us up for a beautiful day as we go into Wednesday. I mean, the temperatures are still below seasonal, but it's really going to be a nice day. Now, let's see here. Our overnight low, my forecast is -2. What's the record for tomorrow, the 13th? It's -1.7 from 1967. So if we get there, indeed, again, we're going to set a new record low. But 13 degrees tomorrow afternoon. Some rain coming in Thursday, but the warm-up is Friday, Dwight. I'll tell you all about that coming up.
Thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
The weather update is brought to you by Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. We test, so it runs. Take advantage of special offers now. It's hard to stop a Trane.
Canadian singer Bryan Adams is facing accusations of racism over a social media post about the COVID-19 pandemic. The singer has now apologized, but his post on Instagram continues to draw all kinds of attention. Yelena Adzik joins us now with more on this. So, Yelena, let's start with what he wrote.
Yes, okay. So we're talking about an Instagram post, and the comments were later switched off. He ends up posting a song, Cuts Like a Knife, of course, one of his classics from the 80s, and then he posts what he feels is essentially the person or people responsible for the fact that his 3 London gigs were going to have to be canceled. But in doing so, he made some reference to terminology that did not sit well with a lot of people. So, for example, I'm looking at it right here up on the board. You'll see he's talking about the words like bat eating, wet market animal selling. He talks about virus making greedy people. And of course, I'm toning it down. There are many expletives in this one. And he says, because of all of that, the world is now on hold. And he, of course, goes on to say it's not just about me getting shows canceled, but also people dying and that sort of thing. Well, one way that this was interpreted beyond the obvious, I'm going to mention that in a second, but one way it was interpreted is just that he's, all about animal rights. And PETA was standing behind his comments and saying that animals need to stop being eaten. However, Amy Go, who is the president of the Chinese-Canadian National Council for Social Justice, completely disagreed with what he had to say and said it was really damaging. Have a listen to her.
Immediately, people jump to this conclusion. Immediately, Chinese because we eat everything is immediately being blamed. To me, again, that's stereotyping, that blanketing of Chinese is racist.
Then came the apology today, but what did he have to say in response to the backlash that came at him for those comments?
Yeah, so they were overwhelmingly negative, aside from the PETA that I mentioned. So his apology, let me give you a look at that. He says that he apologizes to any and all that took offense to my posting yesterday. No excuse. I wanted to have a rant about the horrible animal cruelty in these wet markets being the possible source of the virus and promote veganism. I have love for all people and my thoughts are with everyone dealing with this pandemic around the world. So then he posted another song. And, this was really surprising, Dwight, for a number of different reasons. But first and foremost, he just does not speak out in public that often. I mean, this is someone with lots of Grammy nominations to his name, even Academy Award nominations. So it was really surprising that he would use such strong language in the first place. I don't think this issue is going to go away just because he apologized. A lot of people are still talking about it right now.
Yeah, this whole anti-Chinese sentiment seems to be in the zeitgeist right now, and we have to be careful with our words. Thank you, Yelena.
You got it, Dwight.
After the break, Canadian seniors are getting a boost in federal financial assistance. No application required. Details on the multi-billion-dollar package and when it will be flowing into bank accounts next. A memorial was held today for the city's first confirmed COVID-19 death among a person experiencing homelessness. Joseph Shabala had been staying at a shelter. Advocates say the city isn't doing enough to prevent more cases of the disease in those facilities. Lorenda Redekop has the story.
This monthly memorial to mark homeless deaths, different this month.
Deep sadness, deep anxiety, frankly.
Live streamed via video to allow distancing. As for the first time, they mark a death caused by COVID-19. Late this afternoon, Dixon Hall identified him as Joseph Shabala, born in the Republic of Congo, a longtime Toronto shelter resident. The city's latest numbers show 9 shelters have outbreaks, with 279 people affected, 11 of them in hospital. Advocates want the city to do more to prevent other deaths.
They're still, by and large, not mass testing in shelters. They're only testing after there's a number of positive cases. And even then, it's sometimes a week later, sometimes not really, frankly, not at all.
His organization is part of a lawsuit against the city, demanding 2-meter distancing in shelters. They've posted pictures and videos during this pandemic to show the close quarters. Today, the city says it's moved more than 2,400 people from shelters or tents into other housing.
Almost all of the shelter system now has been able to achieve physical distancing, and we're just in the process of sending out our quality assurance teams to verify that that has in fact been achieved. And I think within the next few days, we'll be in a position to feel confident about that.
But those who work with homeless people say the demand for tents continues.
They'd love to be able to go into the shelter, but they can not today. Not today, not for them. No, they say no.
She'd like to see mobile testing available for that community. And at today's memorial, a moment of silence, not just for those who died, but also those continuing to live with these challenges.
May they know health soon. May they get all the care they deserve. May their lives be cherished. The government must act.
Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
Millions of Canadian seniors will be getting a direct payment of up to $500 from Ottawa to help with costs related to the pandemic. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau also promised today to find long-term solutions to the tragedies unfolding in long-term care homes. Julie Van Duzen has the details.
Inhale and then relax.
Seniors receive fixed monthly benefits, but they've seen their costs rise during the pandemic. Groceries, delivery fees, dispensing fees for prescription drugs, taking taxis instead of public transport. Their investments have taken a hit. It hasn't been easy, says 75-year-old Joan McDougall.
My money is basically invested. Maybe I would have been better to put it under my mattress. I don't know.
Seniors built the Canada we know and love.
There's nothing today to help seniors with their declining investments, but the government will give a one-time top-up to help with their expenses. Those seniors whose income is under $128,000 will receive an extra $300 tax-free, a one-time payment added to their old age security check. Low-income seniors who receive the Guaranteed Income Supplement will get an extra $200, a one-time boost for them of $500. The government was asked repeatedly why there's only one added payment for seniors, given the pandemic could last a long time. The government points to a GST top-up it sent out last month.
If this continues for another 6 months, for another year, we will have to continue to make adjustments and extend many programs. But right now, what we're looking at is the short-term support.
On the health front, more than 80% of the deaths due to COVID-19 in Canada have been seniors, many in long-term care homes. The federal government has offered temporary help, example, sending in soldiers.
What we are experiencing in Canada is unprecedented and unacceptable.
The Prime Minister says it's not up to the federal government to fix the problems in seniors' homes, but he says in the coming months his government will help the provinces find lasting solutions. Julie Van Duzen, CBC News, Ottawa.
A Centre for Children with Special Needs wanted a special way to say thank you to parents during this pandemic, so they brought music, some dance moves, and some pizza, too.
I think that
for parents of children with severe disabilities and medical complexities. They're sort of like the victims of pandemic that aren't talked about enough. And we speak to our families on a daily basis and we know the struggles, and we just felt like we need to be there, like we need to show up for them.
We've got 2 small kids at home, 3 and 5, Sora being the youngest, and just having that extra support Monday to Friday really helps. My wife's actually a frontline healthcare worker. Without having them kind of helping us over the last 7 weeks, 8 weeks, I think that's what it is, we'd be really, really stressed out.
Our families, the mothers, the parents have stepped up, and we thought they can really deserve a treat, so we thought we'd throw in some pizza. And just celebrate how fantastic they've been through all of this.
Kayla's Children's Center delivered cheers and pizza to families of children with disabilities. Now, while the center is still participating in e-learning, the center wanted to show their support to the families by providing a tiny bit of much-needed FaceTime, even if it was from a distance. The center even brought a DJ along for the ride. There was a different kind of support for families on display in Scarborough today as well.
Today's event is about raising awareness about food security in Scarborough, and we're encouraging everybody to donate to the Daily Bread Food Bank.
The Leafs and Raptors mascots, along with a steady stream of cars, all on hand today at the U of T Scarborough campus. As you can see, people were dropping off food donations. Firefighters and other volunteers were on hand to collect the donations. Through the Scarborough Cares initiative, the food will be distributed to families in the community experiencing food insecurity during the pandemic. Coming up next, can you believe it's been 1 year since this?
Fly up top, looks at the clock, turns the corner for the win!
We look back at the shot after the break.
On Thursday, we will share more details about the next stage of reopening our province. We'll be reopening more low-risk workplaces, seasonal businesses, and essential services.
Premier Doug Ford says some good news is on the way this week as Ontario gets ready to enter the first real stage of reopening the economy. We will have to wait until Thursday to find out which businesses will be allowed to start back up again, but some hair salons and barbershops are already preparing so they can hit the ground running when and if they are allowed to open. Nellie Nanowski now with an update.
Customers won't be able to waltz into a salon like they used to.
They will be asked to clean their hands, sanitize their hands, have a mask on, asking them not to bring anything extra into the salon, so no beverages or anything like that.
And it will be by appointment only. Salons are already opening up in the U.S. and even in Canada. Ray Civello has been monitoring what others are doing. He wants his staff and clients to feel safe, so he's investing in disposable equipment.
We are using disposable towels, disposable capes, and the stylists are all wearing, not only they're wearing a mask, as well as all the clients coming in are asked to wear a mask as well, but they're also wearing a plastic shield.
Barbershops like this one are also gearing up.
I'm not going to lie, as a barber, I've definitely felt anxious about it. I have to touch people whether I like it or not.
To make sure staff feel safe at both of Barber & Co.'s Toronto locations, Candace Webster says they'll be cutting the number of clients in half to ensure social distancing.
We're also going to have to take that time to sterilize all of our tools with our clippers and stuff. We've got to make sure that we brush that right out.
And it will be haircuts only, no shaves. Many salons are also going to be asking you to come in with clean hair because they're going to be cutting it dry. The only time you're going to get a wash is if you're getting your hair dyed. And as for blow dries, Ray says, forget it.
We don't really want to blow the air around. We want to try and keep that as stable as possible. And also we want to get you in and out within the most reasonable amount of time.
One thing salons and barbers are going to be doing is extending hours to fix all your mishaps.
What are you most looking forward to when you go back to work?
I miss everybody in the shop, honestly, and it's going to be weird not being able to hug my clients and stuff. I'm just going to do like a little elbow bump or the toe tap.
The hope is that sometime in June, you'll be able to get your hair done professionally. Natalie Nanowski, CBC News, Toronto.
Dentists are among the workers hoping to get back to business in the weeks ahead, but they are also at risk amid this pandemic because their work puts them so up close to their patients. As Lauren Pelly shows us, dental staff are now preparing for a new world full of protective gear.
So you don't want to be touching the front of it if there's germs on it, right?
Dental staff are bracing for a new normal, and that means getting fit tested for respirators. This test site is now seeing 50 people a day, 4 days a week.
Identify your bottom strap.
This is Dr. Peter Nakansa, a Toronto dentist and anesthesiologist.
So the appearance is going to be quite different. Your dentist, unfortunately, is not going to look the same way as your dentist did. And even the mask wearing may happen outside of the actual operatories. So I think the experience will be okay, but it will be slower and it will look different than it did before.
So just back up just a little bit.
A fit test is making sure that your face piece or respirator that's going to go on your face is sealing around your face and doesn't leak. That's what your fit test is performing. It's always important, and for dentists, we're here to help them because it is new for them.
New because of the risks that now come with COVID-19.
In dentistry, of course, we have our handpieces that spin inside the mouth, which generate spatter and droplets and aerosols and probably something airborne that I have to work within about 18 inches of the patient. So I'm very close to them.
Trainers make sure the masks offer enough protection.
The first thing we see is that we put a hood on, and I use a very mild bitter solution to find out at what point someone is sensitive to that flavor. Once we've done that, it's a matter of fitting the respirator properly, putting the hood on, then we use a much stronger bitter flavor, right? And so that hood on the whole inside is very concentrated. So if there's a leak in the mask after they've been shown how to put it on, they will taste that very strong bitter flavor.
Perfect.
Yeah, great.
I'm wondering how many hours I can keep it on. The goal? making sure dentists and their patients don't catch COVID-19.
It's important that users of respirators understand the equipment that they're wearing and how it's to be used and how well it will perform against the type of hazard that they might encounter when performing their duties.
Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
Police services across the GTA are reporting an uptick in speeding on our streets. York Regional Police have posted video of one incident which ended up with a call to the young driver's mom.
Does she know you have the car? She doesn't know. Okay, I gotta let you know right now, because she's the owner of the car. I gotta call her.
Tell me the reason why this is like that.
Because he was stunt driving. So he was driving greater than 50 kilometers an hour over the speed limit.
Wow!
As you heard there, the 16-year-old's mother was not too impressed to learn her son was doing 120 in a 60K zone. He was caught on May 4th on Highway 7 near Kiel, along with a stunt driving charge. He's charged with speeding, had his license suspended, and the car was impounded. From the beginning of March until May, York Police have laid over 300 stunt driving charges. That's double the amount laid during the same period last year. Did you get a chance to hear that mom call it?
Oh, yeah. I know. I couldn't understand. Is she screaming or just saying, why?
She was like, wow, when she heard the number.
Oh, I don't blame her. What a reaction. Boy, oh boy. I think many of us will be exclaiming when we get to Friday and we finally see our temperatures warming up. The warmer air is coming. We just have a couple of days. And in between, I have to tell you that tomorrow really looks like it's actually going to be quite a nice day, even if it's not seasonal. Tonight, we do have to get past another frost advisory, so you still have an opportunity to cover your plants or bring some of them inside if they're the type that you can do that. Lovely day on Wednesday with the sunshine and the winds not as strong as today, and the turnaround in temperatures. I mean the real turnaround. I don't mean just a one-day spike. I mean where the temperatures go back up to around seasonal or above and then kind of stay there as we move forward. That is what's coming on Friday and why I'm so excited about it. Your frost advisories you can see extend from southwestern Ontario through the GTA to the north and off towards the east, as well as temperatures are going to dip again below freezing, and we will likely see another record tomorrow morning like we did this morning. So your highs today, not very impressive. They're barely a little bit over what would be an average daytime low. Sustained winds, yes, those have been strong, but gusty too. And we even had a few wet flurries again earlier in the day, just to the north of the city, and those kind of all that's been pushing off towards the east. We are clear and cool tonight. The sun pops out tomorrow. It's going to stick with us until this next system moves in. And watching your timeline, that's not till Wednesday night into Thursday. The cloud cover comes in. The rain is still in southwestern Ontario. Later on Thursday, it will move in. We'll get some breaks in here, and then it comes back in. So really Thursday night and into early Friday, expect some wet conditions. Some embedded thunderstorms not out of the question. Enhanced risk, though, for St. Catharines region down there towards Niagara. Overnight, those temperatures look like this. Our record for Toronto at Pearson is minus 1.7, so that's why I believe we will have a new record. Your highs tomorrow with all of that sun look good. It's still cooler on Thursday with the rain, but Friday, check that out. 20 degrees for the high. And the afternoon should be good once we clear this out. Looks good into Saturday, too. More rain on Sunday, though.
Looking forward to the weekend. Thank you, Colette.
You're welcome.
A lot has changed since we entered this pandemic, including our shopping habits. Stats Canada has come out with new numbers that show how much money we've been spending during this time and what we've been spending it on. Alicia Hassan now with the details.
Remember when government officials were like,
people should not panic and know they don't need to stock up?
Calm must prevail.
And then we were like,
people are panicking over toilet paper?
At the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, sales at Canadian grocery stores were up 40% compared to last year. Where we typically see spending above normal at Easter and Thanksgiving, by March 2020, bam! That lasted a couple of weeks before dropping off by the end of the month. But even after all that stockpiling, according to Stats Canada, we're still spending 10% more than we usually do. Shelves of sanitizer bottles, alcohol wipes are still sparse these days, but according to Statistics Canada, sales are moderating after last month's surge. If there is one chart that tells us a lot about how we're coping, it's the coffee and booze sales. Both were up 80% compared to last year's level. The stats also show that we've been doing lots of baking, including our premier.
I make the best cherry cheesecake ever. I do it from scratch. No recipe, I got it down pat.
But really, some producers are struggling to keep up with demand. Robin Hood flour is running out of its yellow bags. While people were busy baking, they were also busy getting busy. The sale of condoms, contraceptives, lube, and pregnancy tests peaked at the height of the pandemic. And yet, the sale of fresh-cut flowers was down 47%. Romance has taken a hit. Not all spending is up. Despite what my credit card statement says, cosmetic purchases have dropped 44%. And despite what Greg Ross has been up to, the sale of haircutting supplies fell 33%. According to Stats Canada, a lot of these numbers are starting to regulate now, even if our shopping experience is still far from regular.
That, of course, our Alicia Son reporting. Now, we know people aren't spending money on Raptors tickets right now. All we can do is reminisce, so that's what we'll do. It's been 1 year since Kawhi's iconic shot, 1 year since the city erupted after that buzzer-beating win, sending our Raptors to the Eastern Conference Finals. To honor that special moment, our Greg Ross took a trip down memory lane, speaking to a few people who had a special view of the shot.
Kawhi up top, looks at the clock, turns the corner for the win!
There was a lot of tension in that building in the lead up to that moment.
And the tension was very right because Philadelphia was coming back strong. They were playing with confidence.
If you remember, Kawhi Leonard misses a free throw.
I remember obviously Kawhi being at the free throw line and thinking to myself how wonderful it would be if he could hit that because it would force them to have to score a three to even tie the game.
Short, tapped out.
The Sixers caught it and they quickly fast break, made their run, and Jimmy Butler ended up with the ball and was able to bank it in.
Butler driving, ties it up.
The wind got sucked out of the sails temporarily there, didn't it?
I figured it was over then. I hate to say because, you know, it was just.
Because you're a Toronto sports fan and
yeah. You know what? You're right. You're absolutely right.
I thought to myself, hey, we've still got some time left and we've got the ball.
Everybody was nervous.
Gasol.
It was Ben Simmons who picked up the guarding responsibility.
Kawhi up top, looks at the clock, turns the corner.
Kawhi makes his drive over to right to the bench side of the court.
They start coming directly towards you.
Yeah, and that was, I feared for my life.
At this point, I'm running out of vision because everybody's standing up. I did see the ball go in the air.
For the win!
I can remember actually hearing an
Did you realize that Kawhi was crouching down just about a meter away from where you were on the floor?
No, I lost all track. I was looking directly at the rim.
When it did the first thing to the rim and then the second, I said, God, make it happen. And third and the fourth. And then I said, amen.
and the place goes bonkers.
It was unbelievable. I mean, to say the least. I can scream just thinking about it now.
I've never seen a craziest end to a game than that one.
Everything on Kawhi's face, I think, explained everything that we're all feeling.
This was a defining moment that catapulted us over that hump and gave us, I believe, the confidence to say anything is possible.
What a difference a year makes. After the break, America's top infectious disease expert testifies with a message for those eager for a return to normal in the fall.
Even at the top speed we're going, we don't see a vaccine playing in the ability of individuals to get back to school this term.
What Dr. Fauci has to say about states quickly reopening and calls to send children back to school coming up next. Top health experts in the U.S. warned Congress today that they are reopening America too soon. It comes as the Trump administration, dealing with record unemployment, continues to push for states to loosen coronavirus restrictions. But with no vaccine or treatment to stem the deadly spread of the disease, top doctors say the country is not yet out of the woods. Katie Simpson has more.
We could stay as close as possible to 5 minutes, then all senators can get their questions in.
There could be serious consequences for both public health and the economy if states begin to reopen too quickly without adequate testing to track and isolate the coronavirus. The message was delivered repeatedly today during the 3.5-hour hearing examining the U.S. response to the outbreak.
There is a real risk that you will trigger an outbreak that you may not be able to control, which in fact, paradoxically, will set you back, not only leading to some suffering and death that could be avoided, but could even set you back on the road to trying to get economic recovery.
Rapid, extensive, and widely available timely testing is essential for reopening America.
The high-profile session took place amid strict physical distancing rules. A handful of senators actually sat in the room while everyone else joined by video link. Dr. Anthony Fauci, the top doctor on the White House coronavirus task force, says it's his belief the actual number of COVID-19 deaths is likely higher than the 80,000 already recorded, since it's likely some deaths have not been accounted for. Though he did offer some cautious optimism about the development of a vaccine. He says researchers could know by late fall whether they have something that may be effective, though don't expect it to be ready for the start of the school year in September. That triggered a heated exchange with Republican Senator Rand Paul.
You know, the mortality between 0 and 18 in the New York data approaches 0. It's not going to be absolutely 0, but it almost approaches 0. And I think the one-size-fits-all that we're going to have a national strategy and nobody's going to go to school is kind of ridiculous.
I think we better be careful if we are not cavalier in thinking that children are completely immune to the deleterious effects.
Democrats and Republicans said today testing is the only way to really get a handle on the outbreak. The Trump administration is promising to have 40 to 50 million tests available per month by September. While capabilities have been expanded in the U.S., the Trump administration has broken most of its testing-related promises. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Washington.
After the break, today's frontline heroes. Stick around for that. We'll be right back. You may remember Oshun or Damau from their stint at the Toronto Zoo. They were shipped to Calgary in 2018, but because of COVID-19, they are returning home to China early. Staff at the Calgary Zoo have struggled to get enough bamboo to feed the giant pandas. Some of the bamboo arrived in such poor shape, they refused to eat it. The giant pandas were expected to stay in Canada for 10 years, but are now leaving after 7 to return home. Throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, Bianca Rivera says her mom has spent the majority of her waking hours trying to ensure her staff and their patients are safe. Tiziana Rivera is Chief Nursing Executive and Associate Vice President of Quality at William Osler Health System. In an email, Bianca told us her mom is always keeping positive, and even with sometimes 13-hour workdays, she always comes home with a smile on her face. I see her working endlessly at home to improve the facilities to decrease and manage the spread of COVID-19. She adds of her mom, she is so passionate about her role. I want her to know that all that she does for the community, her staff, and patients is not going unnoticed. I'm so proud of all her hard work, planning, and decision-making during these difficult times. She is truly my hero, and ours too, so thank you for everything you're doing. If you'd like to share a story about your frontline hero, tag us on Twitter or Instagram at CBC Toronto. Send us a message on Facebook or just email us at torontotips@cbc.ca. That is our show for tonight. Chris Glover has your next local news tonight after the National at 11. We will see you back here tomorrow at 6. Have a great night and stay safe, everybody.